Hey guys, Guro Teague here with Untitled Eskrima, here to talk to you guys a little bit today about our system and show you how we can adapt and modify our movements to accommodate for a variety of different weapons. First, I'd like to give you guys a little bit of background on our system. Our system is a system of Balintawak. There's lots of different systems out there that carry the Balintawak name, and what we all have in common is the preference for close quarters tactics, as well as the fundamental training methodology based on the idea of defend and counter strike. It's always a back and forth, one for one between the practitioners who are training. In my opinion, I believe that is a superior way to practice as opposed to some other arts out there that train defense and expect to follow up with a flurry of counterattacks, which completely ignores the possibility for an opponent's counter. Just kind of give you an example of what I mean. There's lots of systems out there that will have defensive tactics to where the opponent will strike, they defend, and they will begin to strike back with a flurry of counter strikes. That would be a middle range application of what I'm talking about. Long range application of what I'm talking about, a strike could come in, they would fall back, strike this, and then just begin the flurry of counter blows. Okay? But what that fails to account for, as I said, is this guy's desire to hit back. So he may strike me, I may get this first defense, and in the process of me going for this strike, he may make a defense. Now from here, we're in a scenario that if that is where your training stops, expecting that you're going to get that first hit, you're going to freeze. And you're going to have a hard time dealing with what's coming next. Balintawak, our primary teaching method, begins like this. Drilling with my student, I give him a strike, he counters. Here, in the beginning we allow them to score the hit so they can practice and develop their ability and their structure for blocking, clearing my weapon, and working control with their strikes. Adding footwork to the equation, he's merely just trying to maintain proper distance. Once I feel comfortable with his control and his ability to read and defend these strikes, I could change the rhythm a little bit by adding a defense of my own. And as we drill this way, you can see that naturally the speed and the intensity will pick up. His only job here is to defend and fire back his counter strike. I could defend with my left hand, I could defend with my stick, it does not matter. He just has to follow and get his counter strike. So that is a simple defend and counter. So once our student has satisfactorily developed their ability to block, counter strike, they have good control and their reflexes are good, we can take that same format and increase the difficulty by incorporating different techniques and different attacks into the scenario. And that'll look a little something like this. Here, blocking, I can allow him to clear the stick. Block, he can clear my hand. And now I would just continue, same. And I can just keep allowing him to clear these obstructions. Thrusts, obstruction. I could do some parrying motions. Hand, blocking, low thrusting, Abanico strikes, more parries, foot trapping, pretty much any series of attacks and any way I want to pressure my student, I could put into this patterning. Maybe a parry on this side, and it's just his job to follow along with the attacks as I'm giving them. Good. So now we're going to back up a little bit and slow things down and we're going to try to show you guys a few of the techniques that Balintawak systems are really known for, mainly locking, trapping, and disarming. So we're going to use a format that we call Spar 1. This is actually the root drill of all of the drilling that we use in our system. We teach the student this pattern once they've developed their ability to defend, counter, their blocking structure is good, and this is primarily the way we train techniques in a basic form. So, out of this patterning, the student is defending, counter striking, clearing obstructions as the instructor presents them, and we just continue on. And now we can insert techniques. So I'll start by showing a few traps. Okay? My favorite of our system is the stick trapping, where we actually will use the opponent's weapon to immobilize his hands to allow us to strike. So that was one on the forehand attack, and I can also do one on the backhand attack. Strike, strike, I could break the knee, back up, terminate however I want to. Another series we have is called double snaking. Same, attempting to immobilize my opponent's hands. And one more on the backhand side. Double snaking, trapped, strike, strike. Now we can go into some disarming and some locking. And most of the time our locking results in takedown. One of the most simple locks that I like to use is off the angle one, where I could catch my opponent's hand, strike to the head, across the neck, takedown here, levering across the throat. From that same position, there's also a disarm accessible here. Instead of going straight through and across, I just base it here on his wrist, and I could twist, disarm there. Okay, now my partner can disarm. He chose a basic snake disarm. And we have another disarm here. A strip with the puño against his wrist. And one more from this side. Another snake. We could take our disarms from a parrying position, stripping here, striking. And I also can disarm my opponent, gripping his stick, thrusting to the face, stripping here, following on, striking here. Now one more point that I'd like to show you guys. You see how we immediately are following up with strikes after our disarms. Ordinarily, we'd be taking 2 to 3 steps backwards and trying to target our opponent, because we train our disarms under the premise that this guy is not going to allow me to take his weapon uncontested. So when I make my disarm, the first thing we're assuming is going to happen is he is going to be moving in to try to strike. Okay? We're not doing that for right now for the sake of simplicity and ease for the video. But one thing I'd like to show you guys is the idea of counter disarming. So my partner can take any one of his backhand disarms from this position, and if he leaves his stick hang out too much, I could try to grab, hold, take possession, and strip with my empty hands. Now he's tied up, he's got his, what was formerly my stick, laid across his shoulder. He's in a very bad position. From here I could strike, lock, various types of breaks, takedowns. We have all that in the empty hand components of our system. But one other thing I'd like to show you guys is off that same disarm, if I'm taking his weapon here, he could reach out and attempt to grab. Okay? We have lots of counters from an opponent trying to hold our weapons. My personal favorite works off of what we call lifting and clearing. So immediately when he holds, I react by holding. And my initial motion is going to be to strip his hand up as I drag him into a strike into the front of his face. From this position here, I have at least 3 locks that I can execute. If his palm is turned up, I could base the tip of my stick behind his neck and lock his elbow, and you can see how that would be incredibly painful. If his palm is sideways, the elbow rolls over, which gives me a shoulder throw. And if I miss the positioning with the tip of my stick behind his neck, I'll get it on his body and score the elbow lock from there. All right, so now I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about the Tomahawk and kind of how we would use it in the same way that we use the stick in our system. The particular hawk I'm using here is a trainer made by Filo Blade Works, and this is modeled after the RMJ Tactical Eagle Talon. Immediately you can tell there's obviously a difference here. What I primarily look at when I pick up a weapon that is not necessarily one that I ordinarily practice with is I immediately look at the geometry of it. Okay, so as compared to the stick, right, the stick really has 3 parts that we use within our system. We have the butt, which we can use for hooking and for striking. We have the shaft, which is used for blocking, and the tip, which is used for striking when our opponent's at a greater distance. Okay, so with the Tomahawk now, we see that we have a few extra surfaces that we get to play with. Obviously we have the shaft here, which is what I'm going to primarily use for my blocking. I can hold it here to expose a little bit of the handle underneath that I will use the same way as I use the butt of the stick for striking. And then we get up here, we have the edge. And on the RMJ Tactical Hawk here, I've put silver tape, which will signify where there's sharp edges. So you guys can see that, how I'm using those to my advantage in applying our techniques. So one of the things I like about this particular hawk is this area down here, which is called the beard, is actually an edge as well. On the back side, we have a spike, and on the Eagle Talon, it's not actually pointy, it's actually a chisel, which is very, very good for tool type work. Another area of this that I like is this nice sharp point we have down here. That's really, really nice when I use the beard for hooking applications, because that's just one more area that will bite and produce injury and compliance from my opponent. So now we're going to put the Tomahawk into that basic sparring application that I showed you guys earlier, and I'm going to show you a few of those techniques and applications with the weapon. Okay, so I can begin with some of our trapping to striking. Moving on to some of the disarming that you saw, this time using the beard as opposed to the butt of the stick. From this side, I can roll over, chopping down at the fingers with the butt to disarm here. And so on, just incorporating techniques wherever I can find them. I can use the spike to hook the arm, allowing me to get this takedown. From this position, I have the beard hooked around the throat, and as I said, on the RMJ Tactical Eagle Talon, we have an edge here, so if I needed to, fatal option, push with the knee, pull with the hawk. Can also use the hawk for locking applications, a simple wrist lock using the beard as a lever. Going into a few other takedown options. If I disarm and he tries to take possession of the weapon, same position we had earlier, this time I don't have a long enough weapon to affect the elbow. I could potentially use my elbow and dump this way, but even easier technique than that, I'm going to use what I already have behind his neck here, which is a hook with that beard. I'm just going to rotate, twist him down, and again, I have that beard on his neck, push, pull. One more. spike across the face, beard to the wrist. So that's a little bit of Balintawak with the Tomahawk.